Okay, so welcome everybody. We did have a couple of extra people join us. So welcome Elena and Ashley, Shake as well. So today's session is social media strategies with the lovely expert ladies from Flying Camel. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their roles in history. But we're working with Flying Camel right now. They're taking care of all of our social media and a few other things as well. I met Leanne a few years ago when she came and spoke to our team about social media. And we're really excited to be working with Flying Camel again. So I'm going to pass it off to Leanne to start, and then we'll get Rachel and Kim to introduce themselves as well. And then we have a couple topics that we're going to start off with, and then we'll open it up to any questions that you guys have. So take it away, Leanne.
Great. Good morning, everyone. I'm Leanne Wood. I'm president of Flying Camel. And if you can look at Rachel's background there, you can see it's our 25th anniversary this year. So very exciting. I actually incorporated Flying Camel June 9th, 1995 at the age of 12. I'm sure as you guys are all guessing. So it's
been, Camden.
I know. This was supposed to be a very monumental year for us. And it's been monumental in so many different ways that we weren't expecting, as you know. So anyways, we're getting through it. And interestingly enough, one of the ways that we've been able to work with our clients and keep driving their business forward is social media. So that's why we're here today. As I said, been in business for 25 years. In the last about 15 or probably 17, 18 years, have worked in the kitchen and bath segment. We decided to niche and focus probably 12 years ago. We are the agency for KBIS. We are the agency for NKBA National. Cosentino is also one of our clients here in Canada. We really specialize in the home space. Lixil Canada is also one of ours, so that's DXV, American Standard, and GROA. So we really know the space in terms of the kitchen and bath industry. We have a great understanding of kind of the voice, talking to designers, talking to the consumer for some of our clients, and talking to trade. So I feel like we can give you some really good tips today on moving your social media presence forward. And with that, I will introduce my Vice President, Kimberly Williamson.
Hi, thanks, Leanne. Good morning, everybody. We're really excited to be here. I joined Leanne's team in 2012, so I've been specialized in the kitchen and bath and shelter category since that time. As Leanne said, we work with the NKBA and KBIS, and I think that puts us in a unique position where we can dive in and help you use social media for your businesses and help you set your goals specifically. I like to say, you can Google social media tips and get any number of recommendations on the internet, but what's hard to come by is advice that applies directly to you and your business. And that's what we're here to dig into today. So we're really excited. I'm going to pass the mic to our colleague, Rachel, to introduce herself next.
Hi everyone, I'm Rachel. I'm the content coordinator at Flying Camel. So my job is directly working with social media, managing several social media spaces for a lot of our clients here. I've been with the team since December of last year, and prior to that, I worked in public relations and social media at another agency. So I'm looking forward to helping you guys today and sharing what I've learned so far.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel and Kim and Leanne, of course. So I think what we want to start off with is just talking about the different social media platforms and kind of the strengths or weaknesses of each. So I'm going to let Rachel talk about that first and kind of explain all of the different types of social media that we could be working on.
Yep, so I'm just going to take us through kind of the top 4 that we like to use, especially for interior design clients and those kitchen and bath clients that we were talking about. So the first one I'm sure you all know is Instagram. So Instagram is a growing platform. It has over 1 billion monthly active users now. It's very visual, so it's great for showcasing those finished products, beautiful imagery, beautiful design inspiration. And with so many users, it poses a great opportunity to build your business and build brand awareness and grow your following that way. And then Facebook is the leading social media platform. It's also a great asset to your business and can help you build your community and find new clients. And Facebook actually has an unparalleled targeting and paid advertising component, which Kim will go into a bit more detail today. But that's definitely very useful and something you want to consider implementing as well if you don't already. Pinterest is another one, very visual, kind of like Instagram. 250 million active monthly users, so still very big, big community there. It's great for interior design businesses, kind of sharing that, again, beautiful imagery, inspiring images. If you have a blog associated with your business, Pinterest is a great place to kind of pin those blog posts and use images from that and then link it back to your website. And then the last one I just want to touch on is LinkedIn. So I don't know if everybody here is on LinkedIn, but it's a great professional business platform. And it's actually great to find new customers and clients and business leads. So it's kind of that perfect place to network with people, stay in touch with your clients, and even proactive outreach. So if you see a client is moving, for example, or something like that, it's a great way to be proactive in your approach there.
And I'm just going to add a few things to that too, the difference between Facebook and Instagram. Rachel mentioned how visual Instagram is. Facebook can be a place, you can almost treat it as a little bit more of a news feed. And if you don't have the resources to continually update your website, that's where you could put, promotions, or if there's some sort of special or incentive or new product announcements that you might want to make. You can treat it as more of your news feed. And also another strength of Pinterest is that it's a very powerful search engine. And you might notice that when you Google something, that a lot of the top hits will be Pinterest. So sometimes it's house, sometimes it's Pinterest, but you can also use it as a search engine as well for people to find your business. And we didn't mention, I know someone's gonna ask, well, what about Twitter? So Twitter is a personal preference. Some people love it, and a lot of people in the design industry do use it. In fact, there is a really kind of very active chat every Wednesday at 2 o'clock called KB Tribe Chat, which is always fun to participate and network with fellow designers. A really good way to network with brands if you're interested in that, because a lot of brands participate as well. But Twitter is a personal preference. And if we were going to say, we always say pick a couple, don't try and do everything, don't try and be everyone or everything to everyone. Pick 2 or 3 platforms that you're comfortable with and that you feel that you're good at using, and focus your energies on that.
I'm curious what everyone here uses currently, or at least what they find works best for them. Linda, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're currently doing for social media?
All right, so Instagram, I actually started using Instagram earlier this year. And so far I've just been focusing on getting content and finding my corporate voice. So again, getting really good response, a lot of likes for my projects, so I'm gonna keep that up. I collect things on Pinterest. I don't really post. And Facebook, I just have a personal page. I'm not a big fan of Facebook. I often say that I said that hell would freeze over if I ever joined Facebook. And of course, a week after I got Facebook, Las Vegas had snow and freezing rain for the first time in 50 years. And LinkedIn, I actually have, because my former career was in the corporate world, I have a really strong LinkedIn network from the past, but I think that'll probably be a good avenue for me to tweak for my design work.
Awesome. Elena, what about you guys? I know that you guys are pretty active on Instagram, but I think that's the only place that I actually follow you. So I'm not sure what else you guys do.
As a company,
just so we know, we'd love to interact with you and make sure that I'm sure we're following you, but just mention the name of your firm too, just so we can record it.
All right, so yeah, I'm Twin Oaks Interiors.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
we're here at Colmar Kitchen Studio. As a company, we have a website that we keep fairly updated just because, I think when you first introduce yourself to a new client, they want to do as much research as possible. And going down the rabbit hole of a website is definitely exciting. But we get the most interaction out of, we have a company Facebook, and then we have a company Instagram, but all the designers each have their own Instagram handles. So I do have my own professional Instagram handle. I don't often share on my personal Facebook because it is my personal one. And the same goes with Twitter. Twitter, I have my own personal account. It's nothing to do with my professional life, but I follow all the KB tribe chats on Wednesdays. It is awesome to interact with everybody who contributes to that. I just don't find that when I'm selling my own designs or me as a designer that people are going to go to Twitter to check me out, but they definitely go to Instagram. And same for Pinterest. I feel like it's a Dropbox of sorts. Like you can find all kinds of ideas, but I'm not necessarily marketing my own designs through Pinterest. So that's kind of where we fall in Colmar as an umbrella, and then me myself as a designer.
That might be an area of growth for you, Elena, in terms of Pinterest, just putting projects up, putting design trends, just forming a bit of a presence. As I said, that sometimes that search engine benefit is a good one.
Mm-hmm. I imagine so.
Anybody else want to share what platforms they're currently using?
Or if you're just starting out?
Yeah. Or if you're just starting out as well. Jonathan, what about you? I mean, I know that you...
She was trying to
Yeah, I'm pretty much on it everywhere. I guess focus on Instagram and Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn and try to share some stories from the manufacturers as I can and share some projects from time to time. But I'd say most active on Instagram for projects. I manage the Sheber sales page also to promote our brands. Especially Cabico.
Oh, we see you, Jonathan. We see you. You're all over the place.
Jonathan reposts anything that has Cabico tagged in it, so we love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I stay pretty active, and I do have a house and Pinterest pages. I don't keep them as updated, but definitely that's something when I find time in my busy schedule. I try to go in from time to time and add stuff. It's been quite some time since I've updated, especially Pinterest. But so I'll go in and it's a good reminder for me to get in there in the next week or so and get some nice updated images and things like that for projects I've seen my dealers do and others great inspiration pieces I see on there. But yeah, I try to do a little bit of everything. But like I said, my focus also on Instagram and Facebook with our corporate pages. So.
Cool.
Rachel, I know that you didn't mention house, but I know that a couple of you have mentioned it so far. So why don't you guys speak a little bit about your insight to house?
Kim can probably take that.
Yeah, I'll speak to that if you don't mind. So the reason that we don't include house in discussions like this is primarily that house is not a social media platform. It has a lot of similar functionality, but we find by and large that that is not the best communications tool to go and build a community around your business. It does, it's controversial in that they have some intellectual property stickiness, particularly with finished design, photography, and things like that. So I know that a lot of designers find a lot of value in it, but we just don't personally recommend that you use that as a social media platform.
Yeah.
Kimberly, can you elaborate about the comment about the copyright and the finished photography with respect to that?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So one of the reasons that house is controversial is that when a designer, for example, uploads finished photography, house owns it into perpetuity. So it's in their terms and conditions that the designer doesn't own the full rights to their photography anymore, and that house can then use it to market their own their own platform, and that happens all the time. So you hear anecdotes of designers seeing their designs used in advertisements that they didn't give permission for, or copies of their designs popping up in other places because houses leverage their images and their expertise. And I just find that that intellectual property and design rights and things like that is a bigger conversation, and houses certainly not the only I don't want to say bad actor, but the only person who's kind of pushing the limits in what sort of feels good when you're using a platform. But they're definitely the most visible, and they have driven a lot of designers off their platform when they're looking to build up their own businesses for that reason.
I thought Facebook owns your pictures now too, no?
Facebook does, but they don't use them as aggressively as Houzz. So they tend to, they got in a lot of trouble about 5 years ago, and they've kind of corrected their action insofar as how they use those uploaded images. But even just the way that the platforms work, Facebook doesn't act as the photo organization and repository that Houzz claims to be. Facebook doesn't market itself as an interior design tool that people can use to grow their business. Facebook doesn't award people the best of so that they can market their business to people in their locality. It's the way that Houzz goes about their interaction with designers that we find problematic.
Yeah,
and
they'll
just
take that.
the counterpoint on that, Houzz can be very successful for people. It's a great directory. I know a lot of designers stand up for it because they get a lot of leads from it. It is that kind of directory function, but as we said, it's not a social media platform. It's not where you build a community. Usually the only time you're engaging with people is if they're asking what your paint color is and looking for your sources. Yes. So maybe not the type of client that you want, but some people find it very successful.
Yep, they want to know where you got the product and how they can buy it directly. They don't want to buy it through you.
Yeah.
And like she was saying, when they share the images, there's no credit given to the photographer. There's no credit given to the designer. And a lot of times they'll edit the images and add in their products to sell their products. So yeah, it's something to definitely keep in mind when you put the images up there. It's more than likely, if it's a nice image, it could very well be used with zero credit at all, and other people using that image.
Yeah. The other thing I was told
move on to the platform role, I'm going to talk about Instagram stories a little bit, just because it is an important part of Instagram. And I know Kim always says when she's giving social media advice to someone, especially in the design industry, that keep your feed beautiful, your finished project photos, what you would want if people glanced at your feed, what would you want them to know about your work? Instagram stories is a tool that you can use to show the process, to show the personality behind your brand, to show what goes into it. If you have an event, if you want to do something like that, it's a little bit more personal and in the moment. So we always advise to keep your feed very beautiful and very almost like here's my portfolio, have a look. Whereas that Instagram story behind the scenes acts as a bit of the personality behind your brand, if that makes sense.
That's a great point. Do you recommend us going back? And that's something I read, I think one of the original emails going back and forth about this. I haven't had time to do it yet, but going back and maybe deleting and just keeping some of my top images, is that something you're going to discuss a little bit further, or would you recommend doing that just to kind of keep, just like I said, that clean portfolio of kind of the most popular images on your page, and then just add in, as you said, kind of focus moving forward on your top images and put the others in stories in?
Yeah, that's definitely something that we recommend doing. There's a lot of little things like that you can do to help you appear important to the Instagram algorithm. And keeping fresh content is definitely one of those things. So I'm going to use that to sort of jump into the asset side of things, because I think what we hear and what we know from businesses like yours and organizations like Cabico is that having access to a lot of really high quality photography can be a challenge. So if we were, to expand on Instagram, for example, it's okay to post things, see how they do, and then pull them down. You can post them again in a few months. The lifespan of these things can be quite long. I mean, these, a finished kitchen, a finished bathroom, these are high value projects that you want to get a lot out of those assets. So if you have, 8 photos of one project, feel free to zoom in on one aspect, go into the hardware of something, or talk about the details, the process that goes behind the craftsmanship in some cases. You can reuse those assets again and again. And to speak more directly to what your question was, Jonathan, yeah, definitely. If something doesn't perform very well, Instagram knows that. So it could be the time of day, it could be what you're up against in terms of the news cycle that day. People just aren't on Instagram because it's a national holiday somewhere. If something doesn't get as many likes as you typically get, pull it down and try again in a few weeks, because the asset is still valuable. But Instagram does weigh, if 300 people like this and you have 1,000 followers, well, that's a really high correlation between people who could have seen it and people who acted on it. So they're going to look at you and say, okay, that's really important. We're going to show that to more people. And the opposite is also true. So if you have 20,000 followers and 20 people liked a post, Instagram's going to say, probably not high quality content. They're not looking at it and they're not trying to hurt your feelings. They're just saying, okay, maybe not so important, and bumping that down into what surfaces in the feeds of the people who are following you. So yes, we do definitely recommend that.
Kim and I actually just did that with our own account. We were doing an Our Take on This about Instagram. Our Take on This is our own little video series. And we realized as we're going through our own Instagram feed, we had like a party from 2016 and a Christmas thing from 2017. And we were like, my goodness, we're not even practicing what we're preaching. We made sure that we deleted everything that wasn't cool.
Put those in the stories and then put them in your highlights.
Yeah, exactly.
Why don't we also talk a little bit about paid advertising or targeted marketing and what your guys' thoughts are on that? And then I'm curious if any of the dealers or sales reps in here have done any paid advertising on any of the social media platforms.
I feel like this is a more sophisticated kind of group today. So Kim, I think they could benefit from the paid strategy.
Definitely. Okay. So we like to say the day of pick, post, and pray, that's over. I mean, you don't get to assume on Facebook that because you post something, people are going to see it, unfortunately. So just on a strategic level, we've split up our approach to Facebook, where one is the feed, the company feed, the company page. And you can treat that like a home away from home for your website. You can use it to drive traffic to new initiatives. You can use it to make announcements, that kind of thing. But if you have 5,000 followers or likes on Facebook, you can't assume that all 5,000 people are going to see it. You want them to, and ideally they would. Ideally, you'd be going viral for every post, but that's just not realistic. Facebook is now more than ever an advertising platform. So hitting the little blue button in the bottom right of your post to boost it to the people who like your page will ensure that the people who have opted in to receive messages from you actually get access to it. And that it can be a very, very powerful tool to share your message. So that's one aspect of it, is the boosted posts and the content that goes up on your page. The other side of that is using, it's sort of on the back end of Facebook, but I don't want that to deter you from jumping in and using it. It's very, very user-friendly, is Facebook Ads Manager. So you would probably notice that if you're an avid Facebook user, sometimes it says sponsored, and that would be a boosted post. And sometimes it comes across as a true advertisement. And the beauty about that is that you can go beyond the confines of your page and your audience, the people, your reachable audience, or the people who have opted in to receive messages from you by liking your page. By using Ads Manager, you can go way beyond. You can find people in different geographies. You can search people by their affinities, if they like a certain magazine in your area, or if they're into home renovation projects, if they're the DIY kind of set. Like, you can find people with a laser, basically, with the information that people share with Facebook. As much as they share, we can locate them, and we can find them, and we can market to them using those tools. So I think probably the most important thing to note, and probably the most valuable thing you can do, is the boosted post side, and develop some audiences inside to make sure that the messaging you're posting is relevant to the people who you're connecting with, because we're always trying to spark conversations. But definitely leveraging that tool is a great way to raise visibility and get attention on more eyes in your area to grow your business.
Do you have any
And you
general
have to
feedback
build
on that
and
for the
afford
boost
to-
post?
Sorry?
Who's talking?
I'm sorry about that. I was just saying, do you have any general feedback on the boosted post as far as your demographics? I mean, I've tried to look at, targeting the people that I would think would be looking at the post more often, but do you have like an overall kind of like a go-to demographic, you recommend to use for the kitchen and bath industry, or is it something that more, I'm sure it's targeted depending on the type of company. Like we're a group that we cover from Connecticut to Virginia, so it's a whole different thing with Sheber, but as far as like for my own post in Virginia, like I have certain people I target or whatever. But.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of that is going to come from when you jump in and explore what your targets are. The data will guide you as you go along. So looking for people who are into cabinetry, for example, might not be the best thing, because those are not the people don't self-identify on Facebook as looking for cabinetry when they are. You kind of have to find them at a different point in their sales cycle. So I find typically when people are looking for guidance on projects like that, they're searching for things like bright kitchen, white kitchen, spa bathroom, all of it's sort of at the consumer level. It kind of happens on the search side, and finding targets that you think that they would also be looking at. So you can set up a geography for people who follow a particular media outlet in your area that can kind of indicate. You can find people who like HGTV within a 50-mile radius of your town. Like those are the types of people who are likely to need a specifier for a project, or need to connect with a designer or something like that, because those are the people who are going to have questions that they can't answer themselves. And as we all know, HGTV is not a reliable source of design or product or manufacturer information, but oftentimes that's where the consumer connects to, and that's where we can find them and show them the actual way to a successful project.
And if you're at a level, or depending on what series you sell the most, like look at, as Kim said, use the audiences from something like Architectural Digest magazine, or Elle Decor, or whatever your vibe is. If people like that, they're interested in design. They probably have a certain design aesthetic. So like these publications have done the work on their targets. They're talking to that specific person. So use it. Pro tip.
Sheikh, you had a question?
Yeah, since we're talking about paid advertising, I have a two-part question. First, what do you think of YouTube advertising? And second, what's the best platform for geographical targeting to tighten the geographic area that we're targeting?
YouTube advertising is excellent. I'm finding it a little laggy right now because they're having a lot of difficulty keeping up with demand, and they're doing a very thorough job of preventing any sort of COVID-related sales activity that could be less than ethical. So I'm finding the turnaround time for those kinds of things within the 4 to 5 day range, which has been difficult. But I do recommend that you test and try, particularly if you have high quality video assets that you want to get views for. It's very, very effective, and it can drive a lot of traffic to your website. I love using YouTube because, as we know, Google owns it, and it very highly prioritizes successful YouTube content. Having said that, not a lot of people have those high quality video assets. They're harder to come by. They have production costs associated with them. So kind of what you have to work with will dictate whether or not that's a successful tactic for you. And then in terms of targeting people geographically, Facebook lets you target people within a 10-mile radius is about as small as you can get. Not every small town is findable, but you can find people with a laser around the world with Facebook and with Google. They're both very sophisticated.
Within 10 miles of me, I only have like 50 people.
Yeah, and that's the case for a lot of people. I mean, you take one step outside of a big city center, and oftentimes there isn't enough of a sample. So you find, 50 miles is kind of a recommendation, because then people will drive 50 miles to see you. So that's kind of what we use as a guideline.
Okay.
Does that answer?
Yep, perfect.
Cool.
Brenda also had a question and comment in the chat. She said, She does do paid advertising on Facebook, not necessarily a big investment, but she's wondering if anyone has done a project from someone or for someone from Facebook ads. Or is anyone else doing Facebook ads? Has anybody else done Facebook ads yet?
So Brenda, I think that would be, you're probably running more of an awareness campaign, getting your name out there. And I know you actually live in my area, so I have seen it.
Yay.
But you were like, for example, you're in Brantford, and I know probably a lot of people don't even know what a kitchen and bath designer is. So just building that awareness on a consistent basis is a good thing, and getting your name out there. And as you said, you're not making a huge investment. So why would you not do that? It's more cost efficient than a print ad. Your target market is there and people are active. So I would still recommend trying different creative and trying, some project shots, and your phone number, something really, really clear. I would recommend continuing to do that.
Absolutely. Can I expand on that a little? I think because we got a lot of questions on how to define what the return on investment is for these types of activities. And to make a note on that, because, social media exists at this very odd intersection between paid activities and any earned attention that you could get through like a PR campaign or something like that. And then there's this shared sort of model, and social kind of encapsulates all of that. And it can be really difficult to sell that into a business model when it isn't always clear exactly what you're going to get out of it. But just to make a note on that, I mean, for any business sales funnel, you have to start with visibility, and that has to start somewhere. So whether you're paying money into a billboard or a magazine ad or Facebook advertising, whatever that modality is, you have to start somewhere, because if you're not visible, then you're not discoverable. So Google AdWords is another good example. Like, you have to be findable. So let's start with visibility. And then the best thing about Facebook and using these ads is that you can move directly from visibility into awareness. You pull people into your business and you can start to build a relationship with them. That's something you can't do with a magazine ad. That's something that you can't track with a billboard. So we've got visibility, and then we move into awareness. Excellent. What happens next? Then we start to build affinity. People start to have feelings about your business and what you can offer them and the projects that you do and the people that you work with. They get a sense of what it's like to work with you, and you start to build a relationship. And that's really important, because when you build a relationship with someone, they can turn into a lead, and then a lead ideally converts to a sale. So what that looks like, you kind of have to define for yourselves and for your businesses. But what we love about social media is that it's trackable from every step. And I get that it's really difficult to jump from visibility straight to sales, because it isn't a direct line. There's steps along the way. And that's what these tools are really, really good at. It's the relationship building, and it's the building affinity so that people can get a sense of you and your business. And it actually does shorten the sales cycle, because you don't build a relationship. When you can track a relationship.
He said, if you lost.
Any other questions about paid advertising or strategies so far on anything that we've talked about?
What do you think is the least effective form of advertising? That's a good question, because I'm sure a lot of us have tried different things. And I'd be interested in hearing from Leanne.
The effective form of advertising is going to be something that you pay to place where the audience isn't mapped back to your objectives, regardless of where it is. I don't want to say that one thing is better or worse than the other, but when you're picking where to spend your money, think about who you're trying to connect with. And that's kind of the key indicator, because whether it's on Facebook or Twitter or Google or Instagram advertising happens through Facebook because there's a proprietary relationship there. It has more to do with the target set than anything else. So whether that's in a neighborhood magazine, I mean, if you have a small business area, don't advertise somewhere else to people who are not likely to interact with you or care about your message.
Agreed. Yeah.
Local newspapers are very cheap.
They sure are these days, aren't they?
It's just who's reading them.
Exactly.
Yep.
One
It's
thing
all
that,
correlated together.
Yeah, one thing that COVID has done is brought a lot more people online. So we just want to emphasize that most likely your customers are online. So that's it.
I have a question. Back probably about 6 or 7 years ago, I started there was an existing page that had like 50 followers for a brand I was representing at the time, and I had zero budget. I spent about $50 of my own on targeted ads through Instagram and Facebook, just to do something to try to build a little bit. But by the end of the year, I had about 1,800, 2,000 followers, depending on the platform. And I got, most of my posts were getting a couple hundred likes and several shares and things like that. And then recently doing pretty much the same thing, it's not working the same. So I know the algorithms change very, often. So just wondering if you can maybe, I'm just trying to think of, at that time I was using, I think it was Hootsuite back then, but is there a tool that's better? Because I feel like sharing straight from Insta to Facebook, you lose something. And then especially from Facebook to Twitter, your images don't come through. So you don't actually see it. You're trying to put it on Twitter, you just see like a link. So is there a platform that you recommend for sharing and scheduling and all that?
I feel like you just asked like 5 questions at once. So
Pretty much. I got a bunch of notes. Yeah.
So yes, the dip in efficiency on that $50 ads that did really, really well for you a number of years ago. I'm happy that you had that success. That's not an algorithm change so much as it is a competition change. There's just a lot more money being spent on these platforms. Zuckerberg hired Sheryl Sandberg for that exact reason, and it's a massively profitable business for exactly that reason. You just have to spend more to get more these days. So that's the unfortunate side of Facebook, is that if you want to be visibility, it is pay to play. Same thing happened with Google 15 years ago. It used to be if you had a website, people would see it. That's not the case anymore. That SEO has kind of become really important. It's just become necessary to support your content in that way. We internally use Hootsuite as a scheduler. We really like the interface. I think it's very clean and easy to understand, and it's very trustworthy, which is something that you need when you're using something like that to keep your content organized and to manage your strategy. We've tried a few different things, but Hootsuite is one of the most sophisticated tools. It emerged over a decade ago, and they've really fine-tuned the process. So yes, thumbs up on Hootsuite. And then what was the other thing? Oh yes, and then a note on content. Each of these platforms, whatever you decide is most important for you, wherever you're seeing the most engagement and excitement from your community, make sure the content that you're posting is customized for that platform. Nothing irks me more than seeing something cross-posted, which is not a best practice in any case. Nothing bothers me more when something was created for Twitter and then is automatically published to Facebook, for example. You just don't get the polished and put together look that you get when you customize things per platform. If there's any sort of graphics and it was created for Instagram and it's in a square aspect ratio, Facebook is going to crop it and it's going to cut things off. It's not going to look the way that you want, and putting your best face forward for your business is really business critical, because people are going to look at whether or not they want to interact with you. And when they see things that are not optimized or cropped properly or low quality images or anything like that, it makes you look less sophisticated than you actually are. So shortcuts like that are not recommended.
And tags don't translate either. You have to go into, if you're posting from Instagram to Facebook, you would have to go in and redo all of your tags. I always think, and we say it's the lazy approach to social media, to try and do one post and populate to everything else. As Rachel said at the beginning, every platform has a different function, so you can't expect that every piece of content is applicable to each. And we would even change the captions, even if it's the same piece of content, it was resized and it's resized, we would change the caption. Instagram would be punchier because people are looking for the images. Facebook, you have a little bit of an opportunity to tell a bit of a longer story, not too long because people don't read, but there's different ways to write the captions as well. So build in some extra time to make sure that you're being platform appropriate.
I'm always annoyed when I'm on Instagram and there's like an inactive link in the caption of a post. You can immediately tell that that post was not originally intended for Instagram and it was not changed.
No, and that's a simple fix, Jessica. I mean,
yeah,
Instagram, when we're talking about the jobs that each of these platforms has to do, Instagram is not going to be a traffic generator for your website. That's not what it does. So you can put a link in there if it's something that you want people to see. It's not gonna be overly successful, but making sure that in the caption it says copy and paste the link to get started, or something like that, because then at least it's a clear call to action and people know what to do versus, or there's that, I mean, click the link in bio, but I mean, not a lot of people take that action anyway.
Right.
Stories will drive traffic for you, and it can be really energetic and it can be really fun to do that. But you have to have 10,000 followers to have the swipe up functionality. And it's something to look forward to in the future if you're not at that level yet, but we do like to leverage that for our clients.
Todd had a question about photography. So he said, I'm interested about using the stock Cabico photography versus my own work. How important is it to make sure people know the stock photos are not my personal work? That's a really good question.
You're talking about the supply, the dealer packages that we're putting out?
Right.
Todd?
Right.
Yeah, okay. So we encourage you in that to say, make it your own voice. So in my opinion, what I would do is if it's showing a trend or something, I would put trend alert. Here's some, matte black finishes, and if there is a credit to put it, you're communicating to your client base that you're on top of the trends. You're not necessarily saying it's your own work. So just be transparent and clear about that. And
Okay.
You tag Cabico consistently, people will know, okay, this is the product that you sell, and you're doing that, and that message is pretty clear. And I think it's important that you show that you're on top of trends as well in your area, I would imagine. And I would pepper that. That's the dealer package is designed to give you, say, a post a week. And then I would pepper that with your own content for a really nice balance of your content calendar. And then be very clear that this is a project in your own, this is a project that we just finished. And make sure that the captions are very, very clear and transparent on where it's coming from.
Okay, thank you.
And just to add to that, oh, sorry, Jess.
No, you go ahead, Rach.
I was just going to add to what Leanne said too. With the dealer packages and any other kind of inspirational content you want to share, you want to make sure it's something that you can actually do. You don't want to be sharing something and then someone asks about it and then you're like, oh, I actually can't do that for you. So that's kind of another thing you want to keep in mind when you are sharing other content too.
It's not all going to be appropriate for every person. You might, hopefully you can use 4 posts a month that comes from Cabico, but if you use 1 or 2, that's a win too. You've got some extra content for your calendar.
Is everyone here signed up to be a part of our social media support program?
Yeah,
Okay.
I recognize a lot of the names here, so.
I'm a lot of heads nodding. I like it.
And
so one question is, because a lot of us do participate, and I think some of us follow each other on Instagram and that, is there a concern with like the same images and similar messaging going out? Like I know that there is some overlap in followers, so I'm just wondering, are people going to say, hey, there's definitely somebody behind this push of content?
I'm not concerned about it.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Leanne.
Yeah, no, make sure that you're always tagging Cabico. And let's take an example from another kind of vertical in the industry in appliances. People specify the same appliances, but you're showing you know what I mean? You're showing if you're a Gen Air person or if you're a Sub-Zero Wook person in your designs, you're going to be sharing. So is the designer across the country. So is the designer up in Northern Canada. Like it's just, that is a product that you're talking about and that you believe if you're sharing it. So think about it that way and make sure that you're always tagging Cabico as well. And then I think it's pretty clear.
Yeah, definitely. And we do supply like sample copy to sort of inspire you, and you're welcome to use it as it is, but feel free to take that part and make it your own, because that's where your personality and your brand, voice can really shine through.
And along with the assets that we share, we also share, as Leanne mentioned, those trends and the style reports. So if you see a trend or style report and you have a project that you've done that works with that, you can always use the caption or use it as inspiration guidance and then use your own work as well. So yeah, you can customize it however you want and just make it work for you and for your audience.
Could we talk a little bit about copyright issues when we're posting images from whether it be like an appliance supplier or Cabico or things like that. Any things that we need to be aware of?
Tag, 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 credit, credit, credit.
It serves absolutely everyone in the industry when you can tag people and show support for the people that you work with. One of the trends that we're really seeing that I happen to love on the NKBA side is that the trades are starting to be tagged as well. So it's the designer's vision, but it's the trades that pull it together, and being able to show support in a really holistic way is going to be becoming even more important. It used to be that it was the designer and the photographer, and that was good enough. But I think, you know, the more support we can show for the brands that were specified, not making it like we don't want to be giving away any sort of secret formula. And certainly, you know, if a product is likely to help sell in a project, we don't want to sort of empower people to find it themselves. They need to work with a designer. So, you know, you can keep the brand side down unless, you know, you feel comfortable sharing that, but definitely the people and the businesses who work together to pull a project together can and should get credit whenever possible.
I think some designers might be leery of naming their trades because good trades are hard to find. And so you're naming these folks that you've established a relationship with for years. I'm on the fence about that part. I think, yes, you have to acknowledge the great trades team and Cabico and whomever, but you're giving away some of your information on your good performance. So I don't know if others feel that way, but I do a little bit. Yes, I do. What do others think?
Personal preference, I guess, in terms of,
yes,
we're all about the, you know, transparency. If someone helped you get to a certain place, acknowledge it. But if that's an issue.
And to me, there's some relationship building there too, because, you know, from the trades, if you're showing them support on Instagram and letting people know that this is a really high quality person that they can work with, I would hope that the tradesperson would also do the same thing back and say, you know what, there's a really great designer. It was, yes, we did the install, but this was her vision, and it can go both ways. I know, and I can understand how that would feel a little bit icky inside, because it can be one of your, you know, your secret ingredients. Do you know what I mean? And you don't necessarily want those people to be busy when you call them, but at the same time, if you're showing them that you appreciate them to the extent that you'll publicly support their business, it can be a step in the right direction in some cases as well.
well, I do that in other forms, acknowledge the trades, you know, at the end of the jobs. I will thank them for, you know, their great work and teamwork and all of that, and show them photos, and I'll extend emails of appreciation from the clients to them. So they do know that. But I've seen over the years that, you know, it's an interesting industry to be in, and people are a little more private to share some things with others. That's just what I've noticed. It's kind of
and like I said, this is something that we're just starting to notice, and probably something that will change over the next 5 years. I think, you know, we'll keep our eye on it and see kind of where things shake out in terms of, you know, tags and things like that. But I mean, sharing credit with the people that you work with is if when you're comfortable with it, it's going to be something that we recommend.
And I mean, at the same time, you are promoting yourself. So that's why you're putting all of that stuff out there. And then they also have the opportunity to promote themselves as well, aside from you tagging them in your posts. Like, nothing is stopping them from creating their own accounts and posting the same types of projects and just explaining that they were involved in that project and they were the installer or finish carpenter or whatever it was.
I follow a few awesome kitchen installers. I love seeing their posts and some of the details of some of the really neat coping work they do, and then they'll do like finished videos of the projects, and tag the dealer and the products as well. So it's nice. Those are few and far between, but it's nice when you run into them. So there's a few good ones on Instagram that showcase Cabico projects.
Yes, yeah, there are. Robert had a question a little while back, I think when we were talking about paid advertising, and he said, will you expand on that service? But Robert, maybe you can unmute yourself if you can, and specify what you were referring to.
Yeah, it was a service that Jonathan was commenting on, and then Kimberly was responding to. I didn't get the name of that, and didn't really understand
probably
how that worked.
Oh, Hootsuite.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that was the 5-in-1 question. Yeah, so Hootsuite is actually a scheduling platform and a social analytics tool. It's not directly linked to the ads manager. So the advertising that you put forth into the platform on Facebook, that can impact Facebook directly, and Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger. There's dozens and dozens of different types of ads that you can purchase through Ads Manager. And Hootsuite is more of a content management and planning, and then the insights side of the content that you're publishing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is anyone else using a scheduling platform or a planning platform to kind of map out and organize your social media content for the week or the month?
I'm interested in learning about that, because I find that, posting is kind of like getting to washing your windows. You'll probably never get to it because you've got other things to do.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in finding out about that, because it just...
For sure. I can expand on that a little bit, Jess, if that's okay.
Sure.
So I think if there's anything that you all can take away from today, it's that social media, I heard a great quote. I mentioned it on the call yesterday as well. It's from Jay Baer, who's an absolute leader in the social media industry. A quote I heard from him last week was, the goal is not to get better at social media. The goal is to get better at business using social media as a tool. So when you're thinking about how to approach social media for your business, we would really like it if it just became a layer into your everyday activities. It's not something that you need to sit down and dedicate hours and hours and hours to. We know that you're really, really busy, and this shouldn't take over your life. It should just sort of be built in organically. You're already making decisions. You're already collecting assets. This is just a layer of sharing them in a way that will help support you and grow your business. And that can be in as little as 10 minutes a day. It can be a half an hour a day. It can be 15 minutes twice a week. Like, you can definitely decide what that looks like for you and the amount of time that you can dedicate to it. You'll just want to make sure that if your goals are up here, your time commitment is going to get you there, that kind of thing. So when you're thinking about if there's changes that you want to make to your current strategy, and you're thinking about what your goals are, just bake it into your week or your month. And when you're planning out what you want to do, you can sort of take a look at what you've got to get done over the next couple of weeks and stick it in where it best makes sense. Some people like to sit down with their coffee and do it first thing in the morning. Some people like to check at the end of the day and plan out what their post is going to be for the next day. But the worst feeling is, oh man, I haven't posted in a week. People are, now I got to get something up. What do I have? Like, if you use something like Hootsuite, or if you just dedicate a little bit of time once a week to figuring out what your message is going to be for the next coming days or weeks, it takes the guesswork out of it, and it takes the pain point out of it, because you know exactly what you're doing. And oftentimes that means doing something every Monday, joining the industry chat every Wednesday. There's things that you can do to bake in so that you know that you have that set aside, and you don't have to have that intermittent freak out, like, oh man, what am I going to do, situation happening.
And if you don't want to use a more sophisticated tool like Hootsuite, do an old school calendar where you pick a couple days where you're going to plot it out. Take an hour and figure out what your strategy is going to be for the month or a 2-week period, and look at your assets, say, okay, I can post this every Tuesday, and I'm going to participate on KB Tribe Chat on a Wednesday, and I'm going to do something on a Friday. And just look at the month, plot it out, and then you don't have, as Kim said, you don't have that, oh, what have I got? What can I post? And it all stems back from the assets that you have and what you want to communicate, and just take it in an organized approach. If you were booking a print ad, you would sit and think about what you wanted to say in the ad. You would get the artwork done. You would think about, you'd be talking to your media rep. You would be doing all of that. So think about kind of, taking it into the social media world and the kind of effort that you need to do to make sure that you're meeting your business objectives.
Any other questions that you guys have so far that we haven't answered yet? I do have a couple of other questions or topics that we can bring up, but I'm curious if anybody has any other specific questions relating to what they're doing or would like to do when it comes to their social media.
Does anybody use the live function on Instagram? Does anybody go live to talk with their audience in any way? Just a question.
Not as often as I'd like, but I've done it at KBiz.
Nice. That's a good place to do it. Yeah. That's great. I've seen something, especially in response to the COVID situation, a lot more designers and things like that are going live on Instagram with a lot of different, I think, approaches. But I'm really liking that there's a designer who goes live every Wednesday at 4 o'clock, and it's meant to be just kind of a design chat happy hour, and she brings on different designer friends, and they talk a lot. They do talk about some current events and things like that. So if you wanted to do that, you'd have to make sure that that was part of the brand voice that you were working with. We don't recommend it, but this is definitely, a part of her business. But talking about their design challenges over the week, what they've been noticing, how they're feeling, and just having kind of a one-on-one chat. And it feels like you're listening in on a couple of friends talking, but they're talking about things that matter to their audience. And there's ways that you can use the live functionality to take a lot of the work out of it, because it's live. I mean, if you've got good lighting and you have a high quality Wi-Fi connection, you can just go. You don't have to sit down and plot out exactly what's going to happen. It's okay to kind of take a step back and have a conversation with your audience using the live function.
And in a dealer environment, a showroom environment, that could be good. Set yourself up in front of a vignette that you're proud of, if you have a display, and talk to a fellow designer, talk to someone. It's just a kind of another way to use the social media tools.
I know that it's been mentioned a couple of times so far this morning, but do you guys want to talk a little bit about personal versus corporate pages and brands, and kind of what you think the best strategy is for people?
I think it's been an ongoing topic, specifically with the design community, because often their persona is their personal. And it's, okay, how do I blend my business with my personal? And some people just used to have a business page, and then they realized they were doing most of their marketing and talking about their design on their personal. We would always recommend having a business page, and there's a big difference between that. I feel like everyone in this group knows the difference, but if you are still friending people and getting friend requests, you have a personal page. You don't have a business page. You need a personal business page where you get likes. That's a really good way to figure out, and you get a size of your community. That's a really good way to figure out which you're using. So if you want a business page, do not set it up as a personal page. Another thing that you need to figure out is, we talked about brand voice at the beginning, and you really need to understand your brand voice and your audience. If you are using it for business, is it the place to, for example, share a political opinion or share a comment on a current event? You have to think about that long and hard. If you are truly committed to something and that's part of your brand, absolutely go ahead, but you have to live with the consequences of that. And I've heard some people say, well, that is what I believe in, and I don't want to do business with people that don't believe in the same kind of values as me. That's totally cool, but you have to be prepared to accept the fact that you could lose or gain potential customers based on that. So we suggest, sticking to the business side of it, and making sure that you're being consistent with your brand voice, and always being appropriate. As soon as you start being inappropriate or kind of to the other way, or we all know I'm not kind of what's the word, dancing around. There's a lot of stuff going on right now that everyone has a big opinion about. So you have to decide what is appropriate for your audience and make sure that you're sticking by that and sticking by whatever you're posting. So the easy way is to not address that, but if you do, you need to be prepared to stand by it. Appropriate is the key word there.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I have a personal page and I have a business page, and over time, these people that I've met in my network groups, they want to befriend me, and I did it on my personal page. Is there any way of taking that over to my business page?
Talk about it.
Pardon?
Say, talk about it. And I've seen a lot of designers do that. They'll share a blog post that's on their business page, for example, or a post on their personal, and say, for more information about design, please visit my business page. So you need to point people in the right direction. And if you're interested in design, please follow me you have to ask the question. And then, be careful about who you're accepting as a friend too.
Well,
I always say that no matter what.
It's not so much that, Leanne, it's other, I'll say, people that aren't necessarily my friends, but they want me to accept them as a friend. They're in my network group. So, it's the purpose for them to appear every day, and then they find out my personal side, and I don't necessarily want them.
You don't have to accept them.
No, but it's repeatedly asked. So it's an awkward position because it looks very snobby if you don't.
It doesn't necessarily, because they don't get a notification that you have declined them and their friendship request. And if anybody asks you, it's very simple to say, I keep my personal page personal, so I would rather connect with you on my company page.
Yeah.
And you can make a joke out of it. And I've done that personally as well. Like, you don't need to know when my son's birthday is and that we're having a party.
That's part. Exactly. It's personal.
Pretty awkward, certainly. But you decide where those boundaries are.
So you could message them saying, please make the offer on my Facebook page, my business page.
Yep.
Because
I would prefer to connect with my business page. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's always going to happen because people have different approaches to their personal network. I mean, we're talking about business social media right now, but a lot of people use social media to do what I call network marketing. And that means they want to have a big personal network so that they can market themselves and their businesses as well. So they're taking a different approach than the one that we recommend, but it's never personal, and you decide where those boundaries are. Just stick with what you're comfortable with, because you don't have to let people into your internal personal bubble unless you want to.
Okay.
I'm actually a good example of that, Brenda. Years ago, I used to say to people, if you want to see pictures of my kids and figure skating, for sure, I'll be your friend, but that's what you're going to see. And mine is a bit of a blend because so many designers have done the outreach to me and want to be my friend. And my rule is that if I haven't met you personally, or I haven't interacted with you personally, even if we have 75 mutual friends, I say no.
Yeah.
Or I don't say no, I just ignore it.
Yeah.
That's the way I manage things. But we've also, because Flying Camel is my business and I have the business page, I'm able to keep it, I'm able to post things for business on my business page and keep my my personal a little bit more personal, which leads to something that is important, and we didn't talk about it before, is private Facebook groups. Because this is a place where you can go as your own personality and ask questions. There's a great one. Everyone, I suggest you join a group called the Kitchen and Bath Industry Group. That the moderator is Veronica Miller, who's very entrenched in the industry. She's CEO of Modanis and asked to be a member of that group. They share really important information, sourcing information, brand information. I think Jonathan can attest to that it's a very active, informative group. I know he's a part of that. And that's a place where you do appear as yourself and you can ask questions with your peers. So there is a time and a place to kind of be yourself and be the business.
We have a couple of questions in the chat here. So first, Todd is asking if we can send him a description of how to link Pinterest to his website. Do you guys have any insight on that?
That's going to depend on the platform that his website is built on. It's going to be a widget that he can add on the back end. If it's WordPress, for example, it's very easy.
Okay. Brenda was also wondering who has or uses a YouTube channel. So I'm going to answer this first because we did create, we now have Cabico has their own YouTube channel, but we created one specifically for Cabico Academy where we now are posting all of our webinars. For anyone who hasn't been able to attend it, they can go back and watch it on demand. Some of our sales reps and our internal staff use them for helping to train some of our dealers as well. So we're using a YouTube channel, but to be honest, I look at the odd YouTube video here and there, but that's not something that I really spend a lot of time doing.
If you want some inspiration on a designer who just absolutely kills it on YouTube, look for Karen Bohn. KarinBohn. She's unbelievable. She built her design practice on YouTube, and she's incredibly inspirational.
My daughter kept encouraging me to put videos on Facebook because she says, people stop and watch videos. And, I'm hesitant to do that. And she said, just go onto YouTube and search out and see what people do. So I did that, and in my search, I found this woman named Jill. Her name is Gillian Perkins. So you would read it as Jillian, but she calls herself Gillian. And she's not very old. She's, I'd say, 28 maybe. And she has created, you can watch a free 1-hour video on how to get the most hits on your YouTube channel. And I invested in a course that she offered, and it was really good. I've written probably about 16 pages of content and not done anything about it yet because I needed to get my roots done before I wanted to appear on computer day. So I've done that now. So it's really good. It was something that I don't think I would have done before. I still have to build up my confidence to do it, but it looks like a really interesting idea, and I wondered what people thought, and if anyone on this chat has a YouTube channel and gives it any credibility.
It's another tool, Brenda, so let us know how it works out. It's what you're comfortable with, and you're always figuring out what your best marketing mix is, right? So if you want to make it a priority, that's just something that you invest in, but you always need to test out what works and what doesn't. So we'll be watching you to see how it works.
Oh my goodness, I'll be watching for a while, I think. Okay.
We're hearing now that I think I read the stat last year, and I'd be interested to sort of know where we've landed, but the projection was that by the end of 2020, 80% of all web traffic was going to be video-based. And I think we're probably well on our way. I wouldn't say 80% necessarily is where we're at, but if a picture says 1,000 words, video is that times 1,000 again. It's just a really efficient and easy way to get a message across. But just, it's a format that a lot of people are still intimidated by. But YouTube is not going anywhere. The importance of video is not going to shrink. It's going to grow. So if it's something that you're interested in, and maybe it's not you, maybe it's someone on your team who has a voice that you trust to speak on behalf of your business or your brand, definitely do consider video.
A good practice for that too, and we won't go on about this too much longer, but a good practice for that is just starting to do Instagram stories to get your confidence.
Absolutely.
Just start doing little 3-4 frames, and you'll just start to get comfortable in front of the camera and what you want to talk about. So I would recommend doing that as almost like a step into YouTube.
So what do you think the time limit would be on that? 2 minutes, 3 minutes?
You have to play your message, and your content will dictate that to you. If you're doing a long format project review and you want to go into details, it's going to be longer. If it's something that you want to post on Facebook, keep it to 90 seconds, 2 minutes.
Elena also had a question in the chat. She said, what can I do for content inspiration? I understand scheduling posts and knowing the best time to post is as far as Instagram and Facebook go, but especially now when I'm not necessarily on a job site every day or generating unique situations at the studio, where can I go to help myself figure out what is interesting about me / my job?
Sure, there's so much interesting about you, Elena.
Yeah. I feel like Rachel could do a good job sort of speaking to this, because she's the one who's in the details and things like that. Oftentimes it's about looking at things another way. And I mean, just because we've seen an image, and I'll let Rachel jump in just a second, but just because we've seen an image 30 times doesn't mean that the people who have, that you're trying to connect with have. But I'll pass the mic over to Rachel to expand on that.
Yeah, and I think, Kim, you mentioned it a little bit earlier too, is if you have an image, a project that you've photographed, you can always zoom into a certain aspect of that. And as Kim said, just because you've seen something a lot of times doesn't mean your audience has. So we recommend just kind of peppering it in. Don't do kind of the same project every day, but maybe space it out a few posts between each. But yeah, definitely utilize anything you have. You can keep using it. You can archive or delete old posts and then repost them again. Yeah.
Yeah, I think inspiration comes from so many places. And I know that especially designers, because they're just so visually oriented, that a lot of inspiration comes from fashion. Inspiration comes from travel. There's a lot of things we can't do right now, but there are high quality assets being shared. So if you're feeling uninspired in your current little bubble, look for opportunities to jump outside of that, whether that's through an online source or taking a walk around the block. I mean, there's colors everywhere and there is inspiration everywhere, and looking for different details or looking at things with a different perspective can help you keep you energized. Mood boards are really fun and easy to put together. And if you still have access to different color swatches and different ideas and things like that, just getting out your material so that you can play with it a little bit. And then maybe there's online tools like Canva or InStories that can be really neat ways to pull together what those are in different and engaging formats, working with black and white photography and tying it in with some colors that are popular in your area. It can be hard to stay inspired sometimes, but taking sometimes a step outside of the bubble that you're in, jumping into, you know, what fashion designers are doing, or old photos from past trips and things like that, places that you felt good, can help you stay feeling good and energetic day to day.
And don't be afraid to get inspiration from other designers. I'm sure there's designers that you admire in your career. Just look at them and what they're doing. There's people, you know, search hashtags on things that you want to see. And you're not stealing ideas, you're getting inspired. We look to other social media agencies and PR agencies and say, you know, what are they doing? What's cool? What are best practices constantly to try and make sure that we're, you know, on trend. So do the same thing. Pick 5 or 6 people, watch their stories all the time, watch what they're talking about, watch what they're posting, and it'll probably spark some creativity in yourself.
Before we kind of wrap things up, I'm wondering if Leanne and Kim and Rachel, maybe, do you guys have any kind of last tips or maybe things to avoid doing?
There was a question that came yesterday that I was hoping would come up today, but since it didn't, we can just jump right into it. And that question was, what types of things do I need to avoid? What mistakes have you seen, and sort of any, you know, last thoughts and things that we need to not do. And there's a lot that we can say about that, but I mean, one of the things that I think is really important is paying attention to the quality of the things that you're posting. So let's assume you've done the work, you've taken stock of all of your assets, you've thought about some goals, you've set them, and you're putting together your content strategy. Now let's talk about captions. Keep them short and snappy. That's easy to do. 80 characters or less. I mean, it doesn't give you a lot to work with, but just on the content and the algorithm side, the shorter and snappier, the better. You used to have 5 seconds to capture someone's attention. You're probably down to 1.5 seconds now. If you think about how long you spend actually looking at an image, it takes a lot to stop someone from scrolling. So you want to be as short and snappy and visually attractive as possible. And then the other thing that I think is really important, we've spent so much time talking about how to act as a publisher on social media platforms, but we haven't spent a lot of time talking about the other side of it, which is the actual social side of social media, which means taking time to go into these platforms, not talking about yourself, but acting as yourself and reaching out and connecting with other people in your geography, showing support to businesses in your area, commenting, liking, sharing things that are not published by you, and actually contributing to the conversation overall, because that's the flip side of it. It is really important to take that brand voice that you've thought about and that you've curated and that you're using as a publisher, and going and showing and adding to the conversation that takes place off of your own platforms as well.
I'm going to give a shout out to Jonathan on that too, because
big time.
He makes a really good effort to engage with other people all the time. I think that's part of your strategy, Jonathan. And you give a kind of an expert opinion when people are asking questions. You give your point of view, and it's not your content. You're commenting on other people. So gold star.
Thank you. I know I can definitely improve my content. That's one thing. But it's interesting. I'll say just a side note. I am going to go through and clean up my content, but some of my most liked images have been factory images of cabinets being built or in progress job sites. It's been really weird. Those have been some of my big highlight posts, you know, and I guess maybe people like seeing the behind the scenes, and maybe that's what they're coming to my particular page for content. Not so much the pretty pictures. Sometimes I'll do these gorgeous, amazing pictures with the little shorts, like you said, snappy comment and, you know, targeted hashtags of what's trending, and I'll get 5 likes, and then I'll post a picture of a cabinet that's in the middle of being built with sawdust all over it in the factory, and I'll get 200. You know, it's like, it just doesn't make sense.
A good point too. I mean, I think that that's really important, because people say, what should I be posting? Just jump in, just do it. Let's leverage Nike's slogan from the 80s and just jump in and do it. But then also pay attention to what the output is, because sometimes the most successful posts are not what you would expect, but you are looking for all of those opportunities to connect. And we see that on our side as well. You know, sometimes people are in the mood for a behind the scenes or a before and after, where, you know, a kitchen or a bathroom is just a hole in the ground, and it's amazing to see sort of what the project progression has been like. So you're right, and tracking and paying attention to what resonates with your audience is a really important factor here.
Elena just had a good question in the chat asking, would Cabico do that for us if we had a job in production? Send us some behind the scenes stuff. To be honest, Elena, it might be tough to get your exact job, pictures of your exact job going through production. But I'm thinking that maybe that's something that we could include in one of the upcoming social media support packages, is maybe we can get some action shots from the factory and talk more about jobs in production and things like that. So we'll keep that in mind for sure.
We have talked about that, haven't we? Just kind of like popping into St. Catharines to get a look behind the scenes so that we can go and capture some assets and things like that. So we'd be happy to keep you guys updated if we're able to capture some of that, because people do really like it.
They do, yeah.
And don't forget to take install pictures too, because that's always good, and that's kind of, you have control of that during a project. So take install pictures. You never know when you can use them.
Just spend about 5 minutes cleaning up the job site. That's my little recommendation. You know, get all the coffee cups and stuff out of the way, and you know, if there's, you know, sweep the floor real quick. You know, you can spend 5 minutes and make the picture look 1,000% better.
Yeah, definitely. Leanne, before we jump off, you mentioned something yesterday that I wanted to make sure we brought forth to this group too, and that had to do with the terms of agreement in photography with projects to help with asset collection.
Yeah, very important. Start looking at your contracts now. If you could possibly write into your contracts moving forward, a couple of different things. One would be that you have the right to that install photo that I just talked about, Elena, that you have the right to document your process on social media. And also if you can write in about the professional photography. Not everyone is going to say yes, but you need to ask, because you'd hate to have a finished project and it turned out amazing and you want to photograph and you find out at that point that the client says, actually, I don't want anyone getting pictures of my home. But if you present it up front, add it as a part of your contract, then you're covered moving forward.
Yeah, we actually had a dealer on here yesterday. I think she's from Ontario, and she said they actually provide an extended service warranty for anyone who allows them to come back and take finished photography afterwards. So I think especially if you're giving them some kind of extra little perk, they might be a little bit more likely to let you come in and maybe even clean up their house for you before you get there, Linda.
If they're lucky.
Yeah,
But always ask up front. Don't make it an afterthought saying, oh, by the way, can we photograph this project? That just make sure it's up front.
Yeah.
Can I say something for the dealers on here? And I've done this with my dealers. Something that I like to do, and when I'm pricing the job, I include it in there, and I've done this in the past when I was doing my own projects. Figure in a cost for ductwork cleaning and a great house clean at the end cost of your project, and then you've gotten rid of all that dust that the customers are going to keep experiencing with their ductwork, and you've made a beautiful clean house for you to come and do those pictures. You talk to your cleaning company, they tell you when they're done cleaning, you come that day and you've got the perfectly cleaned house, and you're making a customer thrilled because you've made their house beautiful and clean, and they don't have the sawdust coming out of their ductwork. And you've already put it into the cost of the project up front, so it's not something you're actually losing money on. So it's kind of a win-win-win because you got that beautiful picture, happy customer, and referrals.
I agree, Jonathan. I just found with COVID, for projects that were finishing up just before the lockdown happened, and people have been in their house using it for the past 3 months, and now that we're able to get back in, like sometimes like, wait, the state that you're coming into may not be the state that you left it at.
It's true.
Yeah, that's a good point. So speaking of photography, Jess, can we talk about Hello Cabico and the program?
Yes. Yeah, let's talk about Hello Cabico.
Okay, so we're launching a new program. I'm going to let Rachel go through some of the details. But on the national level, we're looking at gathering up some assets, and we're launching a really cool new social media contest.
Yep, so keep an eye on the Cabico social media and your newsletter that you get this week. So as Kim mentioned, it's a program called Hello Cabico. So it's a social media contest that all of you dealers, designers can enter. And it's kind of just giving you a chance to highlight your work, showcase your best designs. And it's very simple. All you have to do is when you're posting on social media, your finished projects, use the hashtag Hello Cabico, and then you'll automatically be entered to win the contest. So there'll be new winners each month until the end of this year, until the end of 2020. And the prize package is really great. So the first thing on the prize package is a social media guidebook produced by our team. To kind of get you more comfortable on your social media, give you some awesome tips and advice, kind of a deeper dive into what we've talked about here today. You'll also get project features across all of the Cabico social media spaces, and then some fun goodies for your team. So as I said, new winner each month. All you have to do is use hashtag Hello Cabico when you're posting. And we're really excited to see all of your stuff.
And this is like exclusive insider information because we haven't actually announced or launched the program officially yet. So you guys are some of the first ones to learn about it. But it's kind of one of our ways to not only interact with the dealers, but also get some additional assets and content for ourselves, because that's something that, we all struggle with. So this is a good way to get around that.
would you like for us to add it to our post as well? Because I'm not trying to enter the contest, but I'm just sharing other people's work. But would you like for us to add the hashtag or not do it because of that? How would you like to handle that?
I think we'd love the hashtag to be used a lot. There are
Okay.
certain brands that, everything that their kind of community does, they use a certain hashtag.
Yeah.
For example, I'll give you, I'm sure you're all familiar, like My Cambria, hashtag My Cambria is a really widely used hashtag, and it's building the brand, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, let's get the word Cabico out there. So people and consumers are going, oh, you know what? I want to renovate my kitchen. I think I want Cabico cabinetry. And they're going to search for it. So let's all work together to build that.
Yeah, it should be used forever. Hello Cabico is not going away even after the social promotion ends. It's a way that we really want to inspire the network of designers all over the place to indicate that they've specified and are working with the brand.
Perfect. Thanks. That's what I thought. I just want to make sure. Sometimes it's a targeted thing. So.
Yeah. We'll know if it's from you, Jonathan.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, use the hashtag. Make sure you're tagging Cabico. These guys especially are watching all of that. So they see which dealers are really active on social media and tagging us all of the time and reposting and stuff. So we're watching.
Yeah, don't be creeped out, but we are watching you.
Marari said, that sounds rad. Elena said she loves it. Todd says, can't believe I never thought of Hello Cabico. Okay, so just to close things off here, I did just drop a link in the chat for our really quick regular 3-question survey, so please fill that out. I know one of the comments that we got after yesterday's session was to do this every month. I'm not sure that we need to do it every month, but I think that it should be something that we do a few times a year because things are constantly changing, and I'm sure that we will have some new tips and questions and things to ask and answer again in a couple of months. So please take a couple of minutes and fill out that survey. And then thank you, Flying Camel ladies, so very much for this. Again, I learned a couple of things today, and I think that everybody else did as well. So thank you guys so much for taking the time today. And hopefully we will see everybody on one of our future webinars.